students of class 10. Today we are going to continue with the story that we have been talking about last time. In our last class we have discussed the one-act play named The Dear Departed. Today we are going to continue the scene 1 and we're also going to look at scene 2 of the one-act play. Now, in our story we have 6 characters, if you remember. Let's do a quick recap. We have 6 characters. We have Mrs. Slater and Mr. Slater. Yes, we have Amelia Slater and Henry Slater, and they have a daughter and her name is Victoria. And Mrs. Amelia Slater's father, and his name is Abel Merryweather. He was living with the Slaters. Okay, and then we have Amelia's sister, and her name is Elizabeth Jordan. Elizabeth. And Elizabeth Jordan's husband's name is Ben Jordan. And they have a son named Jimmy. We don't have, he's not part of the story, but then we do have a reference to Jimmy in the play. So in this play, it starts off with Mrs. Amelia Slater. She's setting the table over there, and we have discussed about her, how that she is not a warm lady. She's a vulgar woman, and to get what she wants, she goes to any limits, She's that kind of a lady. And her husband is Henry Slater, and he's, he listens to his wife. He doesn't have any individuality. He doesn't stand for what he believes. Okay, we see that he's a very principled man. He has lot of principles. When his wife tells him that, we'll steal the bureau, he says no. He says that's not decent. That's not delicate. That's not the right thing to do, is what he says. But towards the end, we see that, he obliges to whatever she says. He doesn't stop her. So that is Henry's character. And we have Victoria. Victoria really loves her grandfather, okay, and she doesn't pretend because she's a little girl, and I told you last time that she's a very clever girl, and she knows what's happening at home. She knows that her grandfather is supposedly dead, and that her parents are trying to steal her grandfather's things, okay. And then we have Elizabeth Slater and Ben Jordan, who come very late. Okay, they receive the telegram, and after receiving the telegram, they go shopping. They buy few clothes, new mourning clothes. Yeah, they wear black, right? Remember I told you? They wear black to demonstrate that they are mourning, to show that they are mourning. So these people go shopping, they buy those clothes, and then they come to see their father. And before they come to see the father, Henry Slater and Amelia Slater, they steal the father's, yes, remember, bureau. They steal the bureau, they steal his slippers, and they steal the wall clock. These are the 3 things that they steal before the Jordans come. Now, once the Jordans come, they're all seated for tea. They all sit down and they talk about how he passed away, yeah. And then they're all sitting over there, and instead of actually going and seeing the father, when you go to see a dead person, okay, yeah, when you go to see, somebody who's like, no more, whom do you go and see first? Do you go and see that person first, or do you go and have some tea, relax, and then go see that person? No. You first go and see, and especially when it's, it's their own father. But then they didn't have any such feelings, no feelings as such. They didn't really love their father. That is what this shows, yeah. So instead of actually going and seeing the father, the Jordans, they just had they were, ready to have some tea. So they all sat down and they were having tea, okay. And while they were having tea, we see a change of the scenario. We see that something unexpected has taken place. So let's go ahead and continue the lesson. And let's turn to page number 39. I think that is where we stopped. So we are going to continue from page 39. Now here at page 39 we see that they're talking about dividing the things first. They say that yes, we'll go and see our father, but before we see our father and before we think about the announcement that we have to make in the newspaper, let's first make a note of all the things that our father has. Okay, all the furniture. He seems to have a lot of furniture. Furniture means chairs, tables, beds, etc. So he seems to have a lot of furniture, and he says that, who says this? Mrs. Jordan, that is his daughter, Elizabeth Jordan. She says, well, first let's make a list of all the things, and once we make a list of all the things, let's think about how to share those things, and then we'll think about the announcement, and we'll think about our dad, etc., etc. But first, we'll make a list. And Henry says that, well, he doesn't have much. He only has furniture, and then Elizabeth reminds him, he has a gold watch, and that gold watch was promised to my son Jimmy, is what Elizabeth Jordan tells Amelia, okay, her sister. Well, Amelia says, I never heard that. Father never told me that his gold watch was supposed to be given to Jimmy. Then she says, Elizabeth says, yes, when he was living with us. That means we understand that before Abel Merryweather came to live with the Slaters, he was living with the Jordans. He was living with Elizabeth, his other daughter. Now he's with Amelia Slater. He has two daughters. So he lived with Elizabeth Jordan before he came to live with the Slaters. So when he was living with the Jordans, it seems, okay, we are not sure because Abel Merryweather never told us that. Okay, here Elizabeth is making a point that probably can be a lie. She can be dishonest too. So she says that was promised to our son Jimmy. Now Amelia was not happy, but then she didn't have much to say, so she said, well, I don't know about that, and she just kept silent. Now Ben talks about insurance money here. Now Ben reminds them, anyhow, there's his insurance money. Have you got the receipt for the premium he paid this morning? Now if you observe Ben's conversation, throughout the play we see that Ben was only worried about money. Ben was only talking about insurance. You can observe that, okay? He's only talking about money and insurance and stuff like that. And we see that Henry, on the other hand, he seems to be a very nice man, but he's always, he had to give in to Mrs. Slater's words. I think she was a very dominant lady. Yes, she's probably a very dominant lady, and Henry had to, give in to her demands. So here, and this is where we have stopped last time. So Ben reminds them that, well, we do have the insurance money. Don't forget about that. We have furniture, we have the gold watch, and we also have the money. So do you know where the receipt is? Well, Victoria jumps up from the sofa. Okay, Mrs. Slater, I have not seen it. Victoria jumps up from the sofa and comes behind the table. Victoria, Mother, I don't think Grandpa went to pay his insurance this morning. Mrs. Slater, he went out. Victoria, yes, but he didn't go into the town. He met old Mr. Tattersall down the street and they went off past St. Philip's Church. Ben, do you think he hasn't paid it? Was it overdue? Mrs. Slater, I should think it was overdue. Mrs. Jordan, something tells me he has not paid it. Ben, the drunken old beggar. Okay, so here, now they're talking about the insurance money. Now, Victoria tells them that, Mom, I don't think Grandpa went to pay the insurance money. He only went to meet, what's his name? Mr. Tattersall. He went to meet Mr. Tattersall, and from there, they went past the St. Philip's Church, but he did not go and pay the insurance money. Now that was something that was heartbreaking, because if you don't pay your premiums, then you will not get money. The ones who, the nominees will not get the money if that person doesn't pay his premiums on time. So now that means, if he hasn't paid it and if he died, they are not going to get any money. So now Ben says, Ben is only talking about insurance, I told you that, right? Yeah, so Ben says, so do you think he has not paid it? Was it overdue? That means if he didn't pay it, then there's no money coming in. Mrs. Slater says, oh my goodness, yes, I think it is overdue. Then the other sister, Elizabeth Jordan, also says, yes, I think he didn't pay it. Now Ben comments and he says, very, very harsh remark. He says, that old drunken beggar. In the beginning, if you see, he said that, my word, it's a good thing. Okay, when Mrs. Slater points out that he paid the insurance, Ben says, my word, it's a good thing. Okay, so at the beginning when he paid it, he compliments. But when he realizes, when they come to know that he has not paid it, then he remarks very sharply and says, that old drunken beggar. Mrs. Jordan, he has done it on purpose just to annoy us. What does annoy mean? Annoy means to make us angry. Okay, he has done it wantedly. What does the word on purpose mean? Wantedly, intentionally. He wantedly did it just so that we'll be angry. Mrs. Slater, after all I've done for him, having to put up with him in the house these 3 years, it's nothing short of swindling. I had to put up with him for 5 years, and you were trying to turn him over to us all the time, says Mrs. Slater. Henry says, but we don't know for certain that he has not paid the premium. Mrs. Slater, Victoria, run upstairs and fetch that bunch of keys that's on Grandpa's dressing table. Victoria, timidly, in Grandpa's room? Mrs. Slater, yes. Victoria says, I don't like to. Mrs. Slater, don't talk silly. There's no one who can hurt you. Victoria goes up reluctantly. We'll see if he's locked the receipt in this bureau. Now, so now after they talk about, he wantedly doing it, etc., etc., Mrs. Slater says, I have done so much for him. I have tolerated him. What does put up mean? Put up means tolerate. Okay, I have tolerated him for how many years? 3 years. So that means Abel Merryweather, he was living with Amelia Slater for the past 3 years. And Jordan says that, Mrs. Jordan says, he lived with us for 5 years. So 5 years in Elizabeth's house and 3 years in Amelia's house. And she says that I have done so much, and now what does swindling mean? Now he cheated on us. He deceived us. Mrs. Slater says, and then she says, yes, he's such a trouble. He's such a trouble, and I tolerated him. Elizabeth says, yes, I tolerated him for 5 years. Now Mrs. Amelia says, see, and all this while you were trying to turn him over to us. That means, you were trying to say, take father with you, take father with you. You were trying to do that, though you know that he's such a trouble. So both the daughters, they did not want to take care of their father. Isn't that very sad? Both the fathers did not want to keep him. Elizabeth didn't want him because she thought that he was such a pain, and now Amelia Slater is saying that he has been a pain all these 3 years. Okay, and unnecessarily you let him come to our house. So this is the way these two daughters were fighting. Now, Henry, look at Henry, guys. I told you Henry seems to be a nice man. Yeah, for some reason I kind of like Henry over here, but nobody listens to him. Okay, he doesn't have a voice that people would listen to. That's the problem. He's not dominant. Now Henry says, well, we are not sure. Maybe he did pay the premium. So don't just, speak things, about him that are not really true. Maybe he did. Well, anyway, they were not ready to listen to him. So Mrs. Slater says, Victoria, go up and get the keys to open this bureau. Maybe he put the receipt in this bureau after, he paid this morning. So I'll check this bureau, go get the keys from upstairs. Now Victoria doesn't want to go because she knows that her grandfather is dead, and nobody usually, usually we don't like to go to a place, where a dead body is kept over there. So she's like scared to go up, but then she says the mother, we already know about Mrs. Slater. She's a vulgar woman, and to get what she wants, she can go to any level. So, her daughter, she had to yield to her demands. So she went up, though she didn't want to go. Reluctantly. The word is reluctantly. She didn't want to go. Okay. So unwantedly, she had to go up to get the keys so that her mother can look for the receipt in the bureau. Ben, in where? In this thing? He rises and examines it. Mrs. Jordan also rising. Where did you pick that up, Amelia? It's new since the last I was here. They examine it closely. Mrs. Slater, oh, Henry picked it up one day. Victoria returns very scared. She closes the door after her. Victoria, Mother, Mother. Mrs. Slater, what is it, child? Ben, what? Mrs. Slater, what do you say? Victoria, Grandpa's getting up. Mrs. Jordan, this child's crazy. Mrs. Slater, don't talk so silly. Don't you know your grandpa's dead? Victoria, no, he's getting up. I saw him. They're transfixed with amazement. Victoria clings to Mrs. Slater. Ben, shh, listen. So here, Ben and Victoria, they go and see the bureau because Amelia says maybe the receipt is in this bureau. Okay. So they go and look at the bureau and say, Ben goes to the bureau and says, wow, this looks nice. Amelia and Elizabeth says, from where did you pick that up? I've never seen this. Last time when I came, it wasn't there. So Amelia lies. Amelia lies and says, Henry picked it up. Henry bought it. Did Henry buy it? No, it's grandfather's thing. It's grandfather's furniture. But they lied. And while this conversation was going on, Victoria comes running, Mother, Mother, Mother. Then Slater says, what happened? What happened? Anything wrong? Victoria says, Grandpa's getting up. They're like, Grandpa's getting up? He's dead. How can a dead man get up? Now Ben is like, what? Mrs. Slater, what are you saying? Are you crazy? Then Mrs. Jordan, that is Elizabeth, her aunt says, maybe she's mad. She's gone crazy. So nobody is able to believe that, none of them. Okay, look at that. Only these three people are talking. Henry is not talking over there. So these three people are like, like they were shocked to hear Victoria tell them that Grandpa is getting up. Now all of them are transfixed. What does the word transfixed mean? Transfixed means immobile. They were not moving. It was just like in shock. Okay. Victoria clings. Clings means she holds. She's hugging Mrs. Slater because she's scared. It might be the ghost of Abel Merryweather. Yes? So we don't know. They look at the door. A slight chuckling is heard from upstairs, like, yeah. So when you hear those kind of sounds, and that too when a dead man is in the house, you think it's a ghost, yeah? The door opens, revealing an old man clad in a faded but gay dressing gown. He is in stockinged feet. Although over 70, he is vigorous and well-colored. His bright, malicious eyes twinkle under his heavy grey eyebrows. He is obviously either the old man, Abel Merryweather, or else his ghost. So now, the door that, where he was sleeping, where Abel Merryweather was sleeping or dead, that door is opened and there is a laugh. It's a chuckle. Chuckle is a quiet laugh, like, like that kind of laugh. And the door opens and an old man, okay, He's wearing a nice little dress. It's kind of, it looks old, faded, but then it's colorful, and he walks down the stairs. Now, he doesn't have his shoes on. Of course, in this picture we have shoes, but then yes, he doesn't have his shoes on because his slippers are with whom? Yes, Henry Slater. So he doesn't have his slippers or shoes, and just with his socks he comes down the stairs. He is over 70, but then he is very strong. He looks strong and he looks neat and bright, and he has very cunning and wicked eyes. Okay, so this is how Abel Merryweather looks, and now we don't know whether that is Abel Merryweather or his ghost. Now let's see whether it is Abel Merryweather or not. Okay, whether it's him or his ghost. So let's turn to page number 43, and let's go ahead and look at the scene 2 of the story. Scene 2. Abel, what is the matter with little Vicky? He sees Ben and Mrs. Jordan. Hello, what brings you here? How's yourself, Ben? Abel thrusts his hand at Ben, who skips smartly and retreats with Mrs. Jordan to save distance below the sofa. So here, now Abel Merryweather, he comes down the stairs and he asks, what's wrong with Vicky? Vicky is Victoria. What's wrong with Victoria? Why is she running away? You know, because she loves her grandfather, yes? Now she's running away. What's wrong with Vicky? Then he sees Ben and Elizabeth, and he's surprised. You know, what brings you here? Why are you here? Because she never comes. She never comes to that house, because remember at the beginning we came to know that they fought with each other, Amelia and Elizabeth. And Elizabeth said that I'll never come and see you. So Abel Merryweather asks, why is it that you're here now? Then, and he asks Ben, how are you? How is yourself? This is informal English. Okay, we must not talk like this. But this is informal English. And Ben, so he asks Ben. Ben is his son-in-law. Ben, how are you? Now he thrusts his hand, like, you know, he wanted to, like, you know, maybe just acknowledge him by patting on his head, you know, somewhere on his body or something. So Abel thrusts his hand at Ben. Ben, thrust means to push. Okay, so he wanted to kind of, you know, give a physical touch to Ben. But then what did Ben do? He moved away smartly and stands with his wife Elizabeth. Okay, why does he do that? Maybe he's scared. Maybe he's scared that it's a ghost. So he's not sure either. So he kind of, you know, moves away and stays with his wife Elizabeth. Mrs. Slater, approaching Abel gingerly. Father, is that you? She pokes him with her hand to see if he is solid. Abel, of course it's me. Don't do that, Amelia. What the devil do you mean by this tomfoolery? Mrs. Jordan, you took us by surprise, Father. Are you keeping quite well? Abel, trying to catch the words, What? Mrs. Jordan, are you quite well? Abel, I'm right enough, but a bit of headache. Looking at Amelia. Amelia, what the dickens did I do with my slippers? Now here, all of them are scared because they don't know whether it is his ghost or whether it is Abel Merryweather. Now what does Mrs. Amelia do? Amelia goes and she pokes. You know, she pokes. That is poking. She goes and pokes her father. And, you know, she's like, he's not sure what's happening. So Abel is like, what's wrong with you, Amelia? Don't do that. What are you doing? He says, the word here is tomfoolery. What the devil do you mean by this tomfoolery? What do you mean? What's wrong with you? What's happening? Why are you being so stupid? Is what Abel asks his daughter. Then Mrs. Jordan, that is Elizabeth, says, Father, you actually surprised us. Are you okay? Then father is like, what? Why is he asking me this question? So he says, A. A means he's trying to, catch up with their words. Like, there are too many things, going around. Victoria runs away. Amelia, she comes and pokes him and says, is it you, father? And then Elizabeth is like, oh, you shocked us. You're okay? So he's unable to actually understand what's happening. So he's like, what? Then Elizabeth says, are you feeling all right? He says, yeah, I have a bit of headache. That's it. I have a bit of headache. And Amelia, where are my slippers? What the dickens? The word over here is, the phrase here is, what the dickens. And what does it mean? What the dickens means? What in the world? It's an expression. Mrs. Slater, confused. Aren't they by the hearth, father? Abel, I don't see them. Observing Henry trying to remove the slippers. Why, you've got them on, Henry. So Mrs. Slater says, maybe they are by the hearth. What does hearth mean? Here is your fireplace. Okay, this is called fireplace. And this area around the fireplace is called hearth. So she says, maybe your slippers are somewhere near this hearth, somewhere here. So Abel says, well, I didn't find them there. I don't see them there. And then he sees Henry trying to remove those slippers and says, oh, Henry, you have my slippers on. Mrs. Slater promptly means as soon as he said that, she continued without any delay. I told him to put them on to stretch them. They were that new and hard. Now, Henry. Mrs. Slater snatches the slippers from Henry and gives them to Abel, who puts them on and sits in the armchair. Mrs. Jordan to Ben. Well, I don't call that delicate, stepping into a dead man's shoes in such haste. Victoria runs across to Abel and sits on the floor at his feet. Victoria, oh, Grandpa, I'm so glad you're not dead. So here Mrs. Slater, she tells her father that, well, father, I actually told Henry to wear your slippers so that, they can stretch out a bit because they're so new and hard. So I'm trying to help you out. Okay, I'm trying to help you out, and that's the reason I told Henry to wear your slippers. And she snatches. What does snatch mean? To take something by force. Okay, she's the one who told them to take her father's slippers and wear them. And now when grandfather asks, she snatches from him and she gives it to Abel, and Abel wears those slippers. Now Elizabeth understands, okay, because she's smart too. Elizabeth tells her husband Ben, I don't think that was delicate. Delicate means, I told you last time, it means it is decent or being morally right. I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's morally right to wear a dead man's shoes, slippers, in such haste, so quickly. Maybe you can do it after the funeral, but in such a haste, he's dead over there and you're wearing his slippers. I don't think that is correct. Okay. And Victoria goes and sits with her grandfather. And she says, Grandfather, I'm so happy you're not dead. Mrs. Slater, in a vindictive whisper, hold your tongue, Victoria. Eh? Abel says, eh? What's that? Who's gone dead? Mrs. Slater, loudly, Victoria says she's sorry about your head. Abel, thank you, Vicky, but I'm feeling much better. Abel, why, Ben, you are in mourning, and Lizzie too, and Amelia, and Henry, and little Vicky. Who's gone dead? Is someone in the family? Mrs. Slater, no one you know, father, a relation of Ben's. Now here, Victoria, she's a little girl, She's a little girl, so obviously how little girls are. They cannot keep anything in there, within, they cannot control their, if it's a secret, they cannot keep it. So this girl, she goes and says, Grandfather, I'm very, very happy that you are alive. So Amelia now, in vindictive whisper. In vindictive means strong whisper. Whisper is to speak very softly, but at the same time it was very strong and harsh, so that only Victoria can listen. So she says, hold your tongue means shut up. Shut up, Victoria. Okay? And she says, and Amelia explains, no, father, she's just, thinking about your headache. Okay, she's worried about your headache. Then grandfather says, I'm okay. Thank you very much, Vicky, for thinking about me. Okay, so both of them have a very good relationship, the grandfather and the grandchild. That's what we understand. And we see that the father understands that all of them are wearing black. Okay, they're all wearing clothes of mourning. Yes, Ben and Elizabeth bought new clothes. They went and bought new black clothes so that they can, show off that they're mourning for their father. Now, Abel Merryweather asks, who passed away? Who died? Why are you all wearing black? Then they explain. Mrs. Slater, Amelia says, she's so good at lying. See, she's coming up with one lie and another lie and another lie. She's very good at it. She says, father, not someone it is it's a relation of Ben. Abel, and what relation of Ben's? Mrs. Slater, his brother. Ben to Mrs. Slater, damn it, I never had one. Abel, dear, what was his name, Ben? Ben, at a loss, he crosses to front of table. Mrs. Slater, right side of the table prompting Frederick. Mrs. Jordan, left side of the table prompting Albert. Ben, Fred, Alb, Isaac. Okay, so here we see that, Ben is like, a sandwich. He's stuck in between these two people. We have Mrs. Slater saying something, we have his wife saying something, so he's like, he doesn't know whose words to go with. Anyway, now grandfather asks him, so who died? Who died, Ben? Then Ben says, even before Ben could respond, Amelia says his brother. His brother died. Ben's brother died. And father feels very sad. Oh, so sad. So, what's his name? Amelia says Frederick. Elizabeth says Albert. Now he combined both of them. And he says Fred, Alb, Isaac. Okay. Abel, Isaac. And where did your brother Isaac die? Ben, in Australia. Abel rising. Oh, well, I suppose you've been waiting for me to begin tea. I'm feeling hungry. Mrs. Slater taking up the kettle. I'll make some tea. Abel, come along now, sit down and let's be jolly. Abel sits at the head of the table facing spectators. Abel, suddenly recollecting. Amelia and Henry, what the devil did you mean by shifting my bureau out of my bedroom? Henry and Mrs. Slater are speechless. You hear me, Henry? Amelia? Mrs. Jordan, what bureau was that, father? Abel, why, my bureau, the one I bought. So now, Abel, he asks him, what's his name? He asks Ben, what's his brother's name? And he says it's Isaac. Fred, Alb, Isaac. And finally, he gives, Abel says, okay, fine. Where did he die? And he says, well, he died in Australia. Ben did not know what to say. Ben was just trying to come up with new lies to actually cover up their, tomfoolery. Now, Abel says, oh, I think you've been waiting for me to start tea. So, I am very hungry. So, let's have some tea. Now, Mrs. Slater, Amelia goes and says, picks up the kettle and says, I'll go make some tea. And Abel says, oh, no, just forget it. Come here, sit down. We'll all have some fun. It's been after such a long time that the Jordans have come. Okay, it's a family time. So, let's all sit and let's have some fun. So, Abel sits at the head of the table and is facing the spectators. Spectators are these people too, that is Amelia, Henry, Vicky and the Jordans. And we also have the spectators who are watching the drama. Okay, spectators are people who are watching, the ones who are watching something. Now Abel suddenly realizes that the bureau is there and he says, Henry, Amelia, what's wrong? Why is my bureau shifted to this place? Then Elizabeth understands that that also has been stolen. Elizabeth says, what bureau, my father? Which bureau are you talking about? Then Abel says, that one, that's mine. I bought it. So one thing leading to another one. One lie and another lie, yeah? Things are not so nice now. Mrs. Bureau pointing to the, Mrs. Jordan pointing to the bureau. Was it the one, father? Like that she's pointing. Was it the one, father? Abel, that's it. What's he doing there, eh? A pause. The clock on the mantelpiece strikes 6. Everyone looks at it. Drat me, if that isn't my clock too. What the devil's been going on in this house? Ben, well, I'll be hanged. Mrs. Jordan, rising. I'll tell you what's been going on in this house, father. Nothing short of robbery. Mrs. Slater, be quiet, Elizabeth. Mrs. Jordan, I'll not be quiet. Oh, I call it double-faced. Henry, now, Elizabeth. Mrs. Jordan, and you too. Are you such a poor creature that you must do every dirty thing she tells you? Abel, rising, thumping the table. Damn it all. Will someone tell me what's been going on? So here, Mrs. Jordan points out and shows, is that the table, father, you're talking about? Bureau you're talking about? Abel says, yeah. Who brought it here and why in the world is my bureau here? And then at that moment, the clock on the mantelpiece, this is the mantelpiece, the furnace, the clock on the mantelpiece, it strikes 6. Okay, dong, dong. So you could hear the sound. Everyone looks at it. And the drat, what does the word drat mean? Drat again means like, man, don't tell me that that's my clock. Okay, and if it's my clock, tell me what is it doing over here? Why is my clock over here? What has been going around in this house? Now Ben says, it's now time for the real, fun of this, real fun part of the story. I'll be hanged. I'm dead. That's how it is, okay? Just an expression to show that things are going out of control and things are very, very spicy now. We want to know what's going to happen next. Mrs. Jordan says, father, I'll tell you what's going on in this house. People are stealing. People are stealing your things. Mrs. Slater, Amelia says, shut up. Elizabeth, be quiet. Jordan says, Elizabeth says, I will not be quiet. You are such a double-faced woman. Okay, both of you. What does double-faced mean? Double-faced means you're so dishonest. You're liars. You're thieves. You're hypocrites. You're showing off to to father that you actually care for him, but in truth you're not. You don't care about him. Now Henry says he also tries to control Elizabeth. He tries to calm her down, but he cannot. He cannot control his own wife. So how can he control his wife's sister now? Mrs. Jordan tells Henry, and you, what's wrong with you? You're such a nice guy. You seem to be such a nice guy. But why do you have to listen to everything that she says? Why do you have to do it? If she asks you to wear her, my dad's slippers, you wear them. If she asks to bring, if she asks you to bring the bureau down, you bring it down. Yeah? You do everything she says. Why? Can you not stand for yourself? Abel now is very angry. So he bangs his hand on the table and says, tell me what's going on. What in the world is going on? I'm telling you, tell me. He was very, very angry. Mrs. Jordan, yes, I will. I will not see you robbed. Abel, who's been robbing me? Mrs. Jordan, Amelia and Henry. They've stolen your clock and bureau. Working herself up. They sneaked into your room like thieves in the night and stole them after you were dead. Henry and Mrs. Slater, shh. Quiet, Elizabeth. Mrs. Jordan, I'll not be stopped. After you were dead, I say. So now Elizabeth is spilling the beans. She's telling all the secrets, okay? So whatever she knows, she's uttering them right now. And nobody is able to stop them. Not Ben, not Amelia, not Henry. Well, Ben is not trying to stop her. So when Abel says, ask, tell me what's going on in this house, Elizabeth says, I will tell you what's going on in this house. You are getting robbed, father. Okay, people are stealing. And Abel is like, who is stealing? Victorious Elizabeth says, Amelia and Henry. Both of them, they are stealing your stuff. They thought that you were dead, and when you were dead, they took your bureau, they took the clock, and they stole your stuff, father, is what Elizabeth tells her father. Who was dead? Abel asks. Mrs. Jordan, you. Abel, but I'm not dead. Mrs. Jordan, no, but they thought you were. A pause. Abel gazes round at them. Abel, oh, so that's why you're all in black today. You thought I was dead? He chuckles. That was a big mistake. He sits and resumes his tea. Mrs. Slater, sobbing, Father, Father. Abel, it didn't take you long to start dividing my things between you. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Since your mother died, I've lived part of the time with you, Amelia, and part with you, Lizzie. Well, I shall make a new will, leaving all my bits of things to whoever I'm dying with when I die. Whomever I'm living with when I die. How does that strike you? So now, Abel asks, now who is dead now? Because Elizabeth says that they were stealing your stuff when you were dead. Abel is like, who? Who is dead? Elizabeth Jordan says that you. They thought that you were dead, and that's the reason they were stealing your stuff. And Abel understands, oh, that is the reason you're all in black today. Oh, that's the reason you're all wearing dress of, mourning, wearing a dress that symbolizes mourning. Oh, that's such a big mistake. Okay, very big mistake. You made a big mistake because I'm alive. I'm alive. And he sits down and he resumes his tea. Resumes means to continue. He continued having his tea. And after his tea, while he was having his tea, his daughter, Amelia, she was crying. She was sobbing, too many cries. So she was stopping and crying. She said, Father, she's probably sorry, but then too late. Abel says, well, both of you, it didn't take long. I died and you're here and you already started dividing my things. It didn't take long for you to divide. You didn't take long. That means you started off right after I died. Okay? And it says, well, Amelia, after your mother died, after Amelia's and Elizabeth's mother died, I lived part of my life with you and I lived part of my life with Elizabeth. Now, I'll make a new will. Whomever I'm going to be living with when I die, that person is the one who's going to get all my things. Okay, that is going to be the new will because you people are dividing my stuff even as soon as you thought I was dead, which is not right. Mrs. Jordan, Father, it's quite time you came to live with us again. We'd make you comfortable. Mrs. Jordan, I may be wrong, but I don't think Father will fancy living on with you after what's happened today. Mrs. Jordan, Father, it's quite time you came to live with us again. We'd make you comfortable. Mrs. Slater, no, he's not been with us as long as he's been with you. Mrs. Jordan, I may be wrong, but I don't think Father will fancy living on with you after what's happened today. Abel, it seems to me that neither of you has any cause to feel proud of the way you have treated me today. Mrs. Slater, if I've done anything wrong, I'm sorry for it. Mrs. Jordan, and I can say more than that too. Abel, it's a bit too late now. Neither of you care to put up with me. Mrs. Slater and Mrs. Jordan. No, no, Father. Abel. You both say that because of what I've told you about leaving my money. Well, since you don't want me, I'll go to someone who does. Ben. Come, Mr. Merryweather. You've got to live with one of your daughters. So he says, now Abel understood the entire drama. Okay. Now they're unable to say anything now. They're all speechless. Now it's Abel's turn to say something. Anyway, so Jordan says, Mrs. Jordan, Elizabeth says, now Father, you have to come live with us. I'll make sure that you are comfortable. Remember at the beginning somewhere she said that in scene 1 she said, Father was so intolerable, but we still had to put up with him. Okay, he stayed with us for 5 years. She was griping. Now she says, Father, you live with us. Come on, live with us. I'll make you comfortable. Now Mrs. Slater says, no, no, Father, you already lived with her for 5 years. And here you live for 3 years. So you have to stay with us for some more time. Then Elizabeth says, no, no, Father, I don't think Father will fancy. Fancy means like. I don't think Father will like to stay with you after all the things that you did today. Now Abel says, well, it seems to me that neither of you cause to feel happy or proud about the way you dealt with me. Both of you should be ashamed of yourselves. Both of you, shameless creatures. Because both of you started off dividing the things as soon as you thought I was dead. Okay? And it's not that it's only Amelia's fault. It's your fault too. Now he says that, well, I understand that you don't really care for me and all this time you only tolerated me, but actually in truth you don't really love me, you don't really care for me. That is the reason I'm going to live with somebody who really wants me and who really cares for me. Now Ben is like, come on Abel, Merryweather, come on father-in-law, where are you going to go? You have to stay with one of your daughters. Abel says, I'll tell you what I've got to do. On Monday next, I've got to do 3 things. I've got to go to the lawyer and alter my will. I have to go to the insurance office and pay my premium. And I've got to go to St. Philip's Church and get married. What? Mrs. Jordan, get married? Mrs. Slater, he's out of his senses. Abel, I say I'm going to get married. Mrs. Slater, who to? Abel, to Mrs. John Sherrock's, who keeps the ring o' bells. We've had to fix it up. We fixed it up a good while ago, but I was keeping it a pleasant surprise. He rises. I felt I was a bit of burden to you, so I found someone who'd think it was pleasure to take care of me. We shall be very glad to see you at the ceremony. He gets to open the door. Till Monday, then 12 o'clock at St. Philip's Church, open the door. It's a good thing you brought the bureau downstairs, Amelia. It'll be handier to carry it across to the Ringo Bells on Monday. He goes out. So now Abel, he says that, well, now I understand what to do. On Monday morning, I'm going to do 3 things. 3 things. And the first one is, I'm going to go to the lawyer and alter my will. That means change. I'm going to change my will, and the will would say that whomever I'm going to be living with when I die is the one who's going to get the money and everything else that belongs to him. The second one is, he's going to pay his premium. And third thing that he's going to do is get married. Now Ben is like, Ben and Henry, you're getting married? To whom are you getting married? All of them are surprised. Mrs. Slater is like, oh my goodness, he's out of his senses. Something is wrong with his mind. Abel says, no, nothing is wrong with my mind. I'm fine, I'm fine. I've actually, we've planned it a while back, but all this while I was keeping it a, surprise for you. I actually wanted to surprise you and say that, hey guys, I'm getting married. But then anyway, I understood a while back itself that I was kind of being a burden to you, and that's the reason I found out someone who is ready to take care of me, who loves me, and who is interested to be with me. And that is the reason I am going to be marrying Mrs. John Sherrock's. And she keeps means she owns. She owns this Ringo Bells. Ringo Bells is it's a restaurant. Okay, she's the owner of this restaurant, and she says that, Abel says that, I'm going to be marrying Mrs. John Shirocks, and I'm going to be living with her, okay, and we are going to have a happy life together. And you're also invited on Monday. Please do come for the wedding at 12 o'clock at St. Philip's Church. And he goes out, and while he leaves the room, he says that, while he leaves the house, while he leaves Amelia's house, he says that, thank you for bringing the bureau down. I don't have to do it now because it's so heavy. Remember, both of them had to get it down. Henry and Amelia had to get that down because it was very, very heavy. So he says, thank you for bringing it down. Now I don't really have to, I don't have to do that. Okay, thank you for doing that work for me. Okay, so, and the curtain falls. The end of the play. A very funny play, but at the same time the ending is very tragic, I think. Yeah, because both the daughters, if you have seen, they both were indifferent. They both did not care about the father's death. They only thought about money. And Abel, I think it was a wonderful thing that he did. He stood up for what he was. The other two men in the story, Henry and Ben, we see that they did not stand for their own beliefs. Yeah, they only did what their wives told him to. But Abel was not such a man. Abel knew what he had to do. And Abel said that, you don't want me? Fine, I'll live with someone who really wants me and who loves me. And therefore, he left the house on that day, and he went to get married on, he was going to get married on the coming Monday. Okay, so our author here, William Stanley Houghton, he always presented an idea. In every play that he wrote, he wanted to present an idea, some idea. And what is the idea that is presented in this poem, in this play? I'm sorry. Yes, and that is, he talked about the way the moral values are deteriorating in a society. Yes, parents take care of us, but when it comes to us taking care of our parents, are we ready to do that? Yes, or do we think that it's burdensome to take care of our parents? So this idea of how that, people think it is taking care of parents is a burden. This is an idea that is presented in this play. Okay, so guys, always remember, where you may reach to great heights, but always remember that you must maintain good moral values. You must be ethical. You must be honest. Okay, and always take care of your parents, whether they are old or after they get old, or even now, no problem. Take care of your parents, make them happy, and stay happy.